Welcome to Your Dose of Wowness. Okay, I want you to imagine standing in the pitch black, freezing expanse of central Norway. We're talking about a super remote agricultural valley completely surrounded by forested mountains about 120 kilometers south of Trondheim. The population here, it's roughly 150 people. The winters are brutally long, the nights are incredibly dark, and yet almost every single week, lights just appear in the sky over this valley. Sometimes they're white, sometimes yellow, sometimes red. They hover, they drift, and they occasionally move with this sudden, violent speed. Now, you might be thinking this is just folklore, right? But it's not. This is absolutely not a local myth kept alive to sell souvenirs to tourists. These are the Hessdalen Lights. Today, we're unpacking one of the most thoroughly documented, strictly measured, and stubbornly unsolved anomalies on Earth. Let's start entirely with the hard data. Back in 1984, researchers dragged all this heavy scientific equipment right into the freezing snow of this valley. They pointed a spectrograph at one of these lights. And if you're not familiar, a spectrograph basically breaks light down into its component wavelengths. It's the same tool scientists use to figure out what stars are made of. Well, the spectrograph told the researchers exactly what was hovering over the valley. And no, it wasn't a reflection. It definitely wasn't an airplane headlamp. The spectrum was entirely consistent with high-temperature plasma. The data proved it. But here's the catch. That data triggered a literal physical impossibility. I mean, what powers a self-sustaining plasma structure in the freezing air of central Norway? Plasma needs energy to exist, so where on earth is the fuel coming from? You know the real urgency of this mystery? It's the persistence. The early reports started way back in the 1930s, but then between 1981 and 1984, the valley experienced this massive surge. Residents were tracking 15 to 20 sightings every single week. Then 1984 brought that spectrograph measurement confirming the plasma. Fast forward to 1998, and they installed permanent scientific infrastructure. And here's the crazy part. The phenomenon didn't just vanish when the cameras arrived. It actually allowed itself to be measured. Now, the frequency has definitely dropped since the 1980s, but it's still happening today. This is a current, highly active mystery happening right now, right over European airspace. And hey, this right here illustrates the massive difference between wild rumors and rigorous observation. Since 1998, there's been an automated monitoring station, the Hessdalen AMS, constantly watching the valley. It's a permanent array of cameras and magnetic sensors, and it's operated continuously by university researchers from Norway and Italy. It actually captures electromagnetic field anomalies in the 5 to 10 megahertz range exactly when these optical events happen. This grounds the entire phenomenon in hard science. We have a permanent, publicly accessible, peer-reviewed data stream. The mystery is literally caught on camera, over and over again. So science demands an explanation, right? Let's look at the three main physical mechanisms researchers have proposed to explain what's powering these lights. First up, piezoelectric charge generation. Basically, the valley sits on a fault zone that is incredibly rich in quartz. The idea is that geological stress squeezes the quartz, generating these massive electrical charges that then vent straight up into the atmosphere. Second is electrochemical reactions. The bedrock in the valley contains this highly specific mix of sulfur, copper, and a rare element called scandium. Groundwater interacts with this bedrock, essentially turning the entire valley into a giant natural battery. And third, magnetohydrodynamics. Now, in simple terms, this is the idea that the plasma acts almost like a self-contained magnetic loop, organizing and sustaining its own shape. But to really get the physics here, we have to remember what plasma actually is. It is a highly energetic state of matter where electrons are stripped right off their atoms. To avoid dissipating, it requires a massive continuous power source. The tension here is absolute. Think about it. You've got a valley sitting at sub-zero temperatures, and you have this super energetic plasma structure hovering, sometimes for just a few minutes, but sometimes for an hour and a half. Without a visible energy cord, without any known power supply, that freezing air should instantly sap the heat and snuff the light out, but it doesn't. The light survive the cold. So this creates a pretty massive gap between what the instruments are recording and what our theories can actually explain. Let's break it down. The piezoelectric theory. Sure, it explains sudden flashes, kind of like earthquake lights, but it completely lacks a continuous energy source to sustain a glowing orb for 90 minutes. The electrochemical battery theory, well, that explains why the lights happen in this specific valley, but nobody has been able to replicate it in a laboratory at the sheer scale needed to produce atmospheric plasma. And the magnetohydrodynamic theory, that perfectly explains the shape and the behavior, but the self-confinement of plasma at natural low atmospheric temperatures is totally unsubstantiated in theory. Basically, every single hypothesis is incomplete. The instruments see it, but our textbooks literally cannot build it. 30,000 kilometers per hour. I just want that number to hang in the air for a second. 30,000. During that intense 1984 Project Hessdalen field investigation, a radar operator actually tracked one of these lights, and it wasn't just drifting along. The radar returned a calculated velocity of roughly 30,000 kilometers per hour. That is 25 times the speed of sound, Mach 25. A naturally occurring plasma structure moving at Mach 25 through the lower atmosphere breaks absolutely every parameter of known natural physics. It is easily the heaviest, most baffling piece of data in the entire 40-year record. But actually, let me add a quick aside here, because we don't cut corners on this explainer. There is a strict methodological caveat attached to that number. That 30,000 kilometer per hour radar track has been fiercely debated in the scientific community. Critics question whether the radar system's sweep interval and range resolution were actually precise enough to calculate velocity at that extreme of a magnitude. And to be totally fair, no subsequent radar measurement has independently confirmed speeds quite that high ever again. So it's a contested data point. But, and this is crucial, it remains formally documented in the official scientific reports of Project Hessdalen. It's part of the permanent record, and it demands our scrutiny. Okay, let's shift our perspective away from the raw instruments for a second and look at the human beings involved, the 150 residents of this valley. For decades, they told outsiders exactly what was happening over their roofs, and for decades, they were dismissed. People told them it was just airplane reflections or weird astronomical mirages or just pure imagination. But then, in 1983, Erling Strand and Project Hessdalen arrived. They unpacked their radar dishes, Geiger counters, and spectrographs. And those machines? They proved the residents right. The instruments verified the impossible. Can you even imagine the sheer relief, the vindication those residents must have felt? The scientific community brought rigor. And sure, while they didn't bring a final definitive answer, they brought validation. The people of Hessdalen are quite literally living inside a genuine, proven scientific mystery. You know, you have been showing up here confronting these massive, heavy questions with me for 41 straight days. We started this journey building a foundation, examining the external world, really testing the edges of what we know. The Hessdalen Valley isn't just a place where strange lights appear. It's the place where strange lights appear close enough to our instruments that we actually have a fighting chance to figure them out. And you are here for exactly that kind of depth. Thank you for 41 days of curiosity. This channel is still growing, and every single one of you matters to us. If these explainers are giving you something real, please subscribe. But before we go today, ask yourself this. If our absolute best instruments can see an impossible light burning in the freezing dark, what else is hiding right in front of us? Tomorrow, the Week 7 recap. See you then.